Allison linked me a great satire piece on the approved feminist behaviors that men can partake in to be considered acceptable feminist members of society. Although the article lists several possible approved behaviors with all the humorous contempt that they deserve, it's really not difficult at all to think of several examples from every category in this list that are not satirical but represent actual demands of third-wave feminists. To it, I will respond to Mr. Shaw's very feminist article with my own super-duper double-plus-good feminist response.
Number 1. How to look at a woman. It is important to understand that sexual attraction is demeaning and that lust is the modern sin of objectification. When you experience feelings of sexual desire, you are unconsciously negating the personality and achievements of the woman in question. In doing so, you belittle all women with a single glance. If you find a woman sexually attractive, ask her to put a paper bag over her head. She will become relaxed and appreciate your considerate approach.
In his article, Mr. Shaw makes the very reasonable argument that if you catch yourself mistakenly looking at a woman with a lustful eye, the best response is to ask her to put a tasteful paper bag over her head to curb your male gaze. However, I think we should all be mindful of the fact that male interest in women is not about sex, it's about power. This being said, even if you asked a woman to cover her entire body with a paper bag, the patriarchy would still seek to assert their male control over the female form. Because the one here who is at fault is the man and never the woman. After all, it is he who is doing the looking, and she who is the one being looked upon. It is clearly on the onus of the man to avoid doing the gazing. Now, there are several ways that you might consider doing that. I advise that the best way to do this is not to turn immediately to permanent methods such as gouging your eyes out with hot pokers, though the feminist in me would certainly commend you on your noble efforts, but to utilize merely temporary methods such as a blindfold or even your own paper bag when out of the home so that your male gaze is at all times confined to yourself. This way, when you are safely at home and your patriarchal vision is far away from any poor, unsuspecting women, you can still potentially use your sight to work in ways that will further assist the sisterhood, such as writing pre-approved feminist articles about how much you hate your gender and wish that the male species as a whole would just die out.
Number 2. How to ask a woman out. We now understand that unwanted sexual advances, inappropriate flirting, and rejected attempts at seduction are forms of sexual abuse. A woman must give full and conscious consent to each stage of a liaison, so when you meet a woman for the first time, start by discussing the possible outcomes of the relationship. Although it can be difficult to explore every scenario before the relationship has actually started, guarding against potential abuse is essential. Pre-approved consent is the best guard against the dangers of spontaneity.
Whoa, friendo. Hold up there, partner. Slow your roll, Joel. It looks like you might be thinking of asking a woman out. I'm sorry there, Mr. Shaw, but if you're thinking of asking a woman out, even with full consensual knowledge, you're already taking a step too far. After all, how is she even going to fully consent to your approach if you approach without gaining her full consent? You see, this is just never going to work. Your best choice is to just wait for her to approach you. If you worry that this might make it more difficult to attract a mate, fear not, for there are always ways that you could signal your positive intentions. My personal favorite is to go set up your Mac laptop at your nearest organic tea bar wearing your favorite "This is what a feminist looks like" t-shirt. Remembering that helpful blindfold that I mentioned before will prevent the need to avert your eyes whenever a woman enters the store. If this fails, you could always go demonstrate at your nearest abortion clinic holding signs saying how much you respect women's personal choices.
Number 3. How to have sex. Sex is an important time to show your female partner that she is valued. Previously, you may have both enjoyed the physical intimacy of sex. You must now appreciate that objectifying a woman during the intensity of a sexual liaison is sexist and belittling. Before proceeding, remember to gain consciously opted-in consent. When engaging in the sexual act itself, remember to avoid any focus on body parts which are associated with female objectification. Try arousing your partner by discussing her accomplishments at work or asking for her thoughts on major news stories.
Again, I think that Mr. Shaw is on the right track here by focusing on her personal accomplishments rather than on her body, but I still think that there are ways that you could make your sexual liaisons just a little bit more feminist. You can continue to use your blindfold in a way that respects her personal autonomy, but I think that the best way to ensure that she is a fully willing participant in the activity is to simply handcuff yourself to the bed and lie there in a starfish position until she is ready to engage in intercourse with you. This will undoubtedly be the most attractive feminist position that you can put yourself in, because it signals that you are 100% focused on her personal consent to the activity. If she fails to approach right away, this is no problem, as it simply signals to you that she is not yet prepared to consent, and you should be pleased to know that you are respecting her feminist boundaries. Just be certain that when she does eventually approach you, that you make sure to ask for her expressed verbal consent as well. You wouldn't want her to feel that you are not concerned for her full knowledge of the activity that she's about to participate in.
Number 4. How to talk to other women. A femman doesn't talk, he listens. Men have talked for centuries, and women's voices have not been heard. Feminists are making up for this inequity by talking on behalf of all women.
Actually, I think that Mr. Shaw has this one correct when he says that men shouldn't talk, but merely listen. However, I think that he can go one step further and make sure that other men know their place as well. If you see another man trying to speak rather than listen, you can be sure to inform him that he is male, and especially note that he is white if he is in fact white, and therefore they should remain silent in the presence of women unless they are asking for explicit verbal consent as per point 3.
Number 5. Understanding working class women. Patriarchy is insidious. The vast majority of women simply get on with their lives, study, work, and sustain relationships without ever becoming conscious of their own oppression. Working-class women are particularly susceptible to internalized misogyny. Working-class women simply cannot see that they have absorbed the ideological framework of patriarchal oppression. Try tweeting #badwoman every time you see a woman who is displaying signs of unconscious misogyny.
Excuse you, Mr. Shaw. I don't think you have any right to be telling working-class women that they have internalized misogyny. What did we just say about men talking to other women? That is exclusively for female feminists to do, thank you very much. And quite frankly, I'm much more prone to respect women who are attempting to earn their own way through life and smash through that glass ceiling than women who have the audacity to labor under the patriarchal control of a man. Is there anything more contemptible to a feminist than a woman making her own choice to stay in the home and care for the children of a man? Though I hesitate to call it her choice, as she's obviously so poisoned by patriarchy that the internalized misogyny is practically strangling her. Clearly, you have some serious work to do if you want to become an actual feminist, sir.
Number 6. Support radical action for equity. Women are underrepresented in many levels of society. They may be playing a greater role in politics, business, and trade unions, but bastions of male overrepresentation remain. You should demand equity at all levels and call for radical action. Job swaps would rapidly create equity between the sexes. You could propose that bin men swap with primary school teachers, building workers with nurses, and car thieves with social workers.
Psh, adorable. Thinking that women would deign to seek equal representation in those meager jobs that are reserved for the dregs of society. I mean, come on now. We can't expect women to rise up and claim their rightful place in the top of civilization while handling garbage bins in back alleyways, now can we? Now, women are well on their way to genuine equality now that they are 60% of university attendees and graduates. Let's continue this trend in the upper echelons and leave the demeaning dirty work in the hands of men where it belongs, shall we?
Number 7. Laugh. Feminists are funny. It is a sexist myth that feminists do not have a sense of humor. Simply reading the tweets of many feminists shows that they are, in fact, extremely funny. We should not confuse heightened moralistic outrage with a humorless approach. Feminists love jokes. For example, Question: what is the quickest way to a man's heart? Answer: through his chest with a knife.
Indeed, as a strong feminist myself, I think I have demonstrated that I am exceptionally hilarious. And although laughing at my jokes is not technically speaking in my presence, you're definitely pushing your luck. After all, my jokes are exclusively for other women, and I couldn't care less about your male approval of my humor. After all, accepting your approval in this regard would only further confine me to a patriarchal standard of comedy, and this is unacceptable. All right. I think that this is enough Inception satire for one day. Today on Men's Mental Health, we'll be talking about the often very real demands that many feminists put forth in order for you to be considered an acceptable male feminist in today's society, if they even grant that you can be called a feminist at all. Quite naturally, we'll point out the futility of these behaviors and suggest some alternative courses that will help you to maintain your dignity and self-confidence in a world that is increasingly telling you how toxic you are for standing your ground. Let's get right to it.